This program, proudly brought to you by Inglis.
Hello, I'm Searcy. Welcome to a new week of Bred to Win, coming to you from expat Kiwi John Sargent Stables here at Randwick in Sydney. Fittingly, our feature story this week comes from some of Sarge's Kiwi compatriots, the wonderful team at Waikato Stud. As Savabil's reign continues, and a first fabulous book of mares are now in foal to their Caulfield Guineas winner, Super Seth. We'll hear more from Racing Australia boss Myles Foreman on the important issue of training and retaining stud and stable staff. And in the week he was inducted into the Australian Hall of Fame, we revisit John Messara's tale of the horse who made the Arrowfield Stud Supremo love racing. First though, the latest from the bloodstock world in the Aushorse News of the Week.
And ladies and gentlemen, please congratulate our second associate inductee, John Messara.
Arrowfield Stud owner and chairman John Messara was inducted into the Australian Racing Hall of Fame in Adelaide this week. Having led national breeding and racing bodies, Messara was amongst a group of inductees that included Bob Charlie, Les Bridge, Guy Walter and the Freedman Brothers Melbourne Cup winning jockey great-grandfather Bill McLaughlin. As well as his industry-shaping work as an administrator, it is as a breeder, standing multiple champion sires Danehill, his son Redute's Choice, and his reigning champion sire Snitzel, that JM has had his greatest influence on Australian racing and breeding.
I am proud of them because I don't think it's probably happened before that a grandfather, a father and a grandson stallions have all been champion sires multiple times in this country. So I am quite proud of that. But look, you do need some fortune, some good fortune in this business, because genetics is an area which is uncertain. But look, we do a lot of study on it. We seek a lot of advice, and then we arrive at a judgment, and we move on that judgment. And Danehill was such a case.
The Hunter Valley Breeders Association Awards were held last week, with the horses honoured including Animo, Dazzler, the Dam of Bivouac, September Run and Nature Strip taking the champion racehorse title for the second year running. Capitalist was champion first season sire, with I Am Invincible honoured as champion general sire. Among the human awards, Crestfield's Wayne Bedgegood received the President's Award for Lifetime Achievement, while Coolmore's Dr John Freestone won the Murray Bain Service to Industry Award.
80 Nick, 90 Laura.
Leading Australian first season sire Capitalist provided the top seller on Sunday's day one of the Inglis Melbourne Gold Yearling Sale. The colt from Ponderosa Park out of Group Place Sebring mare Shadow Griffo sold for $115,000. Cambridge Stud's Boom Son of Wootton Bassett Al Manzoor unsurprisingly dominated the NZB National Weanling Sale with the top lot and 5 of the 15 top sellers. Alnui Farm sold the $145,000 Al Manzoor colt from Girl of My Dreams to Hallmark Stud's Mark Baker, who will re-offer him as a yearling in January. Lime Country's Joe and Greg Griffin have bought a property at Blandford near Scone, formerly owned by Tony Williams, as their broodmare numbers have grown, necessitating a move from Think Big Stud near Bowral.
Super excited, Caroline. It's been a long time coming, but so thrilled to announce we have brought our first farm. We've leased the last 2 farms and just so happy to get this beautiful property in the Hunter. Great water, lovely river flats, hill, gum trees, terraced areas. Beautiful pasture, hasn't been heavily grazed by horses for the last 7 years, and had good cattle farmers on it that have run a small number of horses. I love being in the Highlands. The farm has been sensational and we couldn't have had a better start of property to go to. But for where the business is going, the number of mares, you know, we walk out 90, 95 mares a year. It's a lot of travel. If we had 30 to 40 and it was a private farm, you wouldn't get me to move out of the property we're on with a shoehorn. We'll build a beautiful yearling facility that'll be ready in time for this season's yearling sales coming up. We're expanding the foaling unit, so everything is in place. We'll just be expanding and improving probably to the way we need it to be for a good commercial farm.
Super Seth is flying.
And with our Waikato Stud story coming up next, let's look at the G1 Goldmine analysis of the son of Dundeel, Super Seth. The hottest cross within 3 generations with both Dundeel and High Chaparral in the pedigree is Danehill, with the great stallion found on the dam side in 46% of stakes winners when Dundeel is in the sire's pedigree. And Danehill is found on the dam side in a massive 39% of Group 1 winners when High Chaparral is anywhere in the sire's pedigree. Best examples of this are Atiab and Super Seth himself. Waikato Stud has sponsored Super Seth on Stallion Match, so you can go to their website or G1 Goldmines to see how your mare would fare with a visit to Super Seth.
Saver 2XL from Insta Celebrity.
The Inglis graduate of the week couldn't have been better timed, having sold as an $8,000 Vobis Gold yearling and winning on the eve of this year's sale in Melbourne. Saver 2XL was bought by Alice Springs Turf Club and on Saturday became a Group 1 winner of the Goodwood Handicap. He's by Kuroshio, a Group 2 and 3 winner by Exceed and Excel, who now stands at Compass Stallions in Ireland and is a full brother to the dams of Group 1 winners Anthony Van Dyke and Bounding. Scone Cup weekend saw a couple of races for Inglis graduates, with the $300,000 Inglis 3-year-old Guineas won by the Inglis Classic $550,000 sales topper of 2 years ago, Midland. The son of Brazen Bow was bought by Bruce Perry, who's also in the ownership group, along with Waikato studs Mark and Gary Chittick, Leb Patania and Jamara Bloodstock. And the $200,000 Scone Inglis 2-year-old was another win by a talented son of Flying Artie in Artiro, who was sold twice by Lime Country Thoroughbreds to Georgia and Jamie Griffin at an Inglis online sale for $10,000 before on-selling at Inglis Classic to Derby Racing and Will Johnson for $36,000. New Zealand's Waikato Stud is consistently one of the leading studs in the world, with Savabeel again crowned champion New Zealand stallion. The farm is excitedly awaiting the first foals of their Caulfield Guineas winner, Super Seth. In 2020, Mike, of course, Waikato Stud was again the leading New Zealand breeder, and we see so many successes in Australia. Horses in the Waikato Silks, you know, by your stallions and from your incredible band of brood mares. So I'm sure it's pretty hard to keep up with the runners every day representing Waikato.
Yeah, well, I'm actually meant to be the one in charge of entering them on the calendar so we don't forget about them, but ironically I do forget about them time to time. But we love watching not only the horses we've bred and owned, but also the horses we've bred and sold, and following through them on the racetrack. So it's something we follow very closely, and we've always got the tally on at the office, watching whatever's coming through, you know, with that WS on the shoulder.
I was just so excited when I saw Super Seth was going to stand at Waikato Stud in the spring of 2020. He just has that wonderful profile to become another star Waikato Stud stallion, and it's a long time since a Caulfield Guineas winner has actually stood at stud in New Zealand.
Oh man, it's still unbelievable. I was lucky enough to be there that day. I was on a marketing tour with New Zealand Bloodstock, and so we quietly waited till Dean Hawthorne, who bought and manages the horse for Jonathan Munns and the other owners, till he was on his own away from the other agents sort of swooping by, and had a quiet word, and we worked away, and long story short, through a lot of hard work, we got the deal done. It's an unbelievable horse to have, and I still can't believe that we've got him here in our presence. It's great.
And taking over is Super Seth and drew away from...
He drew wide at Ballarat that day. It was in March, won by 6 lengths and just did it purely on natural ability. Then went into the city, won again with authority. I think it's very key to show, you know, that natural ability as a young horse.
Dundeel is already quite the sire already and becoming a sire of sires. There's
no doubting he was doing a super job. He was off the back of a full book of mares and certainly a sire on the rise. So it's a sire line we're certainly happy to invest heavily in. There's a good classic quality to the pedigree, but more importantly, there's plenty of speed and precociousness there. You look at Star Kingdom, you've got Rory's Jester there, you've got Bargett further back and Wilkes. There's a real potent source of speed there, and I think looking at his racetrack performance and how he ran his races, it's very reflective of the pedigree behind him.
Super Seth gobbles it up like only he can.
Of course, when he resumed in that prep after the Guineas, we had now taken over the ownership with the group. So things probably didn't quite go to plan at all in that last prep where he had his place against those older horses. So there was no doubting his ability. It just didn't quite go to plan. But I mean, that's horse racing, and here we stand with him in the paddock.
And speaking of him in the paddock, I mean, you know, he's just a beautiful, beautiful stallion, as you would expect. How's he sort of letting down in your eyes, and what's been the reception from breeders to Super Seth in his first season?
It's better than we could have hoped. We knew he was going to be popular. We decided to stand him at 35,000 plus GST. I think I counted this morning, there was at least 11 Group 1 winners booked to him, over 25 stakes winners, and a multitude of stakes performers and stakes producing mares. So with that higher service fee, it has commanded a higher strength of mare that's gone to him. And he's actually got bigger and stronger every week he's been here. He's just been a tremendous horse to have anything to deal with.
Probably a length, Arcadia Queen.
And of course, Savabeel, champion sire again in New Zealand. He's had another incredible season. It was just brilliant seeing Probabeel, just a wonderful flag bearer for the Cox Plate winner. You know, so many other great group winners that he's provided again through the past year.
He's 19 and there's no signs of slowing down. We're very, very grateful to have him. He's just a pleasure to be here. He's a true champion. I think he's 5 consecutive years in a row now over here. He's in the top 20 in Australia year in, year out. Probabeel, of course, has been mega this year. Moanga looks something very special. And yeah, he's just doing what he does best.
And of course, Tavachi, this gorgeous sprinting son of High Chaparral from a Fastnet Rock mare. He now has his early 2-year-olds, and his yearlings sold so well last year. They're in some great stables. What are some of the reports coming back from trainers and pre-trainers?
Yeah, very, very happy with the Tavachis. Plenty going on. Importantly, we've had no negative feedback, and I think to have this sort of feedback so early on is testament to the structure and constitution that he's putting into his stock.
And the beautiful Ardrossan, this gorgeous son of Redout's Choice, how are his first foals this season?
Yeah, very consistent, and he stamped them. So 2 very important factors for us. He served 68 mares in his first year with us. Big, strong, physical and quality heads to them, and it's certainly a trait he's consistently leaving across the board. I think the proof's been in the pudding with him because his book's actually increased to 75 mares this year.
Colding and Savatiano.
And it all takes an incredible amount of work to manage, doesn't it? I mean, it's an incredible team there at Waikato. What do you think it is that makes the Waikato stud bred horses and sired horses so special?
I think it's the sire selection for a start. If you look at the ones that have come through here, like Centane, O'Reilly, Pins, Savabeel and now Ocean Park, the bloodlines that are represented in the broodmare band, which is ticking on 200, are very, very compatible with each other. And the key focus with Mark and Gary has always been to produce the best and most sound racehorses we can. And the flow-on effect hopefully being sales ring success and, of course, breeding barn numbers up. So Gary and now Mark running the place have always worked hard to have the right people around them, and they certainly have. We're very fortunate in every department to have top level staff that would get a job in that area anywhere in the world. So it's certainly pivotal, and it complements the quality of the stallions and broodmares we have through and through. And of course it's great to see the younger chittocks coming through. We've got George working here with us at the moment in the yearling prep. Harry was topping paddocks the other week, and Charlotte comes up into Cracker and shows us what to do. So it's certainly, we're in a great spot. We've got great people, and there seems to be plenty more coming through.
A great family operation that continues to produce champions. Coming up on Bred to Win, we look at the issue of stud and stable staff in Australia and the Cambridge Stud Performance of the Week.
And he's drawing clear of the Luskin Star Stakes.
The Cambridge Stud Performance of the Week was the highly touted son of Per Encanto, Lost and Running, who became a stakes winner in taking out the listed Luskin Star at Rose Hill on Saturday. Raced by Carl Holt, led Britannia, Frank and Christine Cook and John O'Shea's wife Isabel, the 4-year-old was bought by his trainer for $40,000 through the Inglis Premier Yearling Sale and is being pursued by Everest slot holders, having won 6 of his 7 starts. His sire Perencanto is by the Great Influence Street Cry and stands at the Williams Little Avondale Stud in New Zealand. This was his 20th stakes winner. And Cambridge Stud's late Tavistock had another Group winner in Australia on Saturday as Lord Vladivostok took out the Group 3 Robert A. Lee Stakes at Norfolkville. The issue of training and retaining stud and stable staff in Australia is a problematic one. I caught up with Racing Australia boss Myles Foreman recently in Sydney to look at the major issues involved. Myles, it's great to see this forum taking place in Sydney. What do you think are some of the key points that you've taken from the forum?
The challenge of obtaining our workforce, retaining them, and then in turn how we keep them engaged in the industry. So the challenges that we've been talking about have been getting to that next generation of the workforce and how our country has changed over recent years, and the natural sort of flow that did exist in many years gone by of people flowing in the industry doesn't exist anymore, and the need to think differently and the need to come together and have a clear strategy to achieve that difference. A
lot of ideas flying around obviously, but how can Racing Australia really, is it possible to take control of it? We know there are the issues with states doing different things, but can Racing Australia introduce a broad platform of training and the whole skills platform all the way down, so it's all, whether it be accredited or judged, in the way, say, a uni degree can be judged?
Look, Racing Australia's role, as evidenced by this forum, is to coordinate and bring the states and participants in the industry together, as we've done, and look at ways in which we can collaborate on a national basis. It's not to create those national programs, but it's definitely to coordinate and achieve those outcomes. And this forum, as I say, is a great example of that. And we start that work next week. Next week, the working group that's put the forum together will start work on what the next step is, and then we will take the outcomes of the forum to the principal racing authorities, to administrators across the country, and work through how we move forward.
Yeah, there are some great already, these programs, whether it be Lindy Morris's Thoroughbred Industry Careers, Cecilia O'Gorman and Aushorse with Fast Track, Julianne Christopher with TBNSW and HTBA. They all have different programs they're working out. Julianne's one is working in with New South Wales TAFE, for instance. Are you able to sort of bring them all together, or is it good to have them as separate things? Do we need to have an overarching education system for the industry?
Well, we have to remember that education in this country is state-based by its very nature. So just as there's state principal racing authorities, there's state federal governments that are administering education. And within that context, we continue to look at what we can do as an industry, and Racing Australia's role in that, to coordinate and bring people together where it makes sense to do so. There are great things happening across the country. The fact that it happens at a state level creates great outcomes because we're looking at it from different angles and achieving different outcomes.
Yeah, so it never can be necessarily truly national, I guess, because as you said, the PRAs and obviously the government bodies as well, it's very hard to break that up, isn't it?
Well, that's the structure. I mean, it's a reflection of the Commonwealth. It's the state structure that works very well for our industry, and Racing Australia's role there is to assist the principal racing authorities and coordinate where we can. I guess one of the big things getting people into the industry is, the work hours. We've seen so much talked about the early starts for track riders and stable staff as well, probably to a slightly lesser degree. What are some of the things that have been discussed as far as how you can, whether it be move track work later, all these things are getting discussed. Is there any commonality of a solution? I think there's one thing very clear in the room. It doesn't matter the individual's background, where they've come from, the issues are consistent. And whether they're track work starting times, they're the environment in which the workplace is existing, it's how the people are attracting and the challenges they face. I mean, our industry is no different to many other industries in this country, struggling to attract people into the industry. There's things we can learn within our industry that's happening on a national basis as much as what other industries are doing to actually address those challenges as well.
And how much does actually training them, so they have, a certificate of whatever level it happens to be, and whether it be, horse breeding or within stable work or whatever, how much do you think that will help to retain the staff? That's the other big thing, keeping them wanting to be in the industry.
Well, I think education is a key driver for anybody, and you think about, if we're trying to attract the next generation, we're also talking about the parents. the parents and them seeing there's a career path and something that comes at the end of that process. So any form of education gives you that starting point and the launching pad to a future career. And as an industry, we do run courses. And we have the IRC here at the forum, and they'll be talking about their role working with federal government and skills impact. So there's many of those courses available. It's about making people aware they exist and, you know, the wonderful things about our industry. As we know, if once someone joins this industry, they very rarely leave. They fall in love with the industry and they stay for life.
But having those career paths is so important, isn't it?
Absolutely, and the right entry point with a certificate of some description is a very good entry point, and then continuing their development as individuals on the way through.
And it is, as you say, it's just a wonderful industry. Whether it be the stud side, the stable side, there are so many other roles within the industry. It's a great industry to be in.
Well, I think that, again, that's a clear thing that's come out on the forum in the last 2 days. It's just the diversity of opportunity that exists with our industry. You can enter the industry at any point, at any age, from any background, and we will welcome you into the industry. We will give you training, we will support you. But those opportunities are vast, as much as the opportunity to travel across Australia and then globally. I mean, there's many people in the room that have had that global opportunity as they've worked through the industry and travel around as well. So, and apart from anything else, a very stable and reliable industry as we've worked through COVID, which is a strong point in itself.
Coming up on Bred to Win in Arrowfield Studs, the horse who made you love racing, we revisit where it all began for John Messara in the week he was inducted into the Australian Racing Hall of Fame.
This segment brought to you by Arrowfield Stud, the brand worth its weight in gold.
Well, I'd have to say probably Starzan, little Zamazan filly I bought as a foal out of a paddock that turned out and won the AJC Oaks. I closed my office that day, telling it was on a Wednesday in those days, telling the staff and everybody they had to come out to the races. I think this filly can win. She was about, I think, 15-20 to 1. She was an outsider. It was one of the strongest fields ever. She beat them. She cleaned them up, and I got a massive thrill out of that because that was sort of a dream come true. Picking a foal out in the paddocks in New Zealand, growing it out, and ultimately winning the AJC Oaks with her. So that was my story, and that got me well and truly hooked.
I mean, that was obviously right at the beginning of your investment in thoroughbreds.
Absolutely.
Would you have thought back then you would ever be running a property such as Arrowfield with these breed-shaping stallions and fabulous broodmares?
No, one thing led to another, I must say, Caroline, and we sort of grew over time, and here we are today. But it's that sort of a game, it's that sort of a sport. It gets under your skin, and all you want to do is do better and better and better at it. So that's the way it is.
And congratulations to John for being inducted into the Racing Hall of Fame, and thanks for your great support of Bred to Win. That's it for this week's show. Don't miss next week when Hanover Lodge brings you the full story on the Hunter Valley Studs Cutting Challenge, aimed at promoting the use of thoroughbreds in yet another sport. And the wonderful Marie Yoshida, one of the world's great thoroughbred experts, with her thoughts on the global breeding industry. I'm Caroline Searcy, coming to you from John Sargent's Randwick, Sydney, Australia. I'll see you again next week.
This program proudly brought to you by Inglis.